What's up, everyone? Kevin Carrillo here, and welcome to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast. My two guests today are Manny Ordaz, hemp pioneer and owner of FreshGrown Systems, along with Mike Hendricks, the executive director of the Go Texas Hemp Association. Manny Fresh, Mike Hendricks. What's going on, gentlemen?
How you doing? How you
All's
doing,
well. How
Kevin?
about with you?
Doing good, man. I'm so excited to have you guys on the show, as is a lot of people online.
We are excited to be here.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks, Kevin, for having us, bro. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think before we get started, it's fair to tell the audience, Manny, you and I, we go back. We know each other from the B-Town. Shout out to B-Town in New Mexico, Belen. But yeah, we went to middle school, high school together, man. So just really proud of what you've done and how far you've come along in this industry, man.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, anyone that knows me that far back knows, how long I've kind of been doing this for. So, yeah, I appreciate you putting this on. It's nice to see you doing something like this, spreading the education, man. It's always nice.
Well, first, I need to thank you because, I didn't inhale in high school. Obviously, I was one of those people that kind of believed the lies that we were told about the plant and, following that narrative of it's a Schedule One narcotic, so therefore it's bad and all this kind of stuff. But over the years, man, as I've learned more about it in college and so on, you've been really integral in like really getting me inspired to get into the industry. And I want to thank you. I mean, we just went to the Texas Hemp Convention in January before all this COVID stuff. So shout out to you, man. Thanks so much for pushing me along.
Passion runs deep, bro. I mean, like I said before, you know how long I've been into this, and I'm blessed that it's been more than just a hobby or a job, and I've been able to make a career out of this, and I couldn't be any more blessed. It's great.
Awesome, man. Yep, absolutely. And so, Mike, for those of our audience who don't know who you are, I know that you're the executive director of the Go Texas Hemp Association. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the work that you're doing within that association?
Well, I work really hard for the farmers because this is an emerging market here in Texas. And what we really are trying to focus on is keeping fraudsters out of the market and from defrauding our farmers. And really focus on making sure our farmers have good resources to go to, such as Manny or FreshGrown Texas, so that they can know that the quality of the seedlings or the seeds that they're purchasing are the right type. And also making sure that they're just kind of learning with professionals who really care about their success and not someone out of Colorado or California who's just coming in to make a quick dollar. And so we're really focused totally on the farmers. And we're an organization that represents farmers. And as we go into this next legislative session, which will be coming up January 19th of 2021, it's going to be really important for us to make sure that some of the legislators who really don't understand the industry don't put more regulations on it, and that we continue to press for opening up the industry to more opportunities. And so that's kind of our focus at this point.
That's great. I love how you talked about the importance of people like Manny, right? Those hemp consultants, if you will, that there's too much fraud going on right now, right? And a lot of that probably had to do with the recreational boom that happened in multiple states throughout the country. But now that hemp is now legitimized and the opportunity for hemp is enormous at this point, it's so important to educate these farmers about where they're getting their seeds, if they're male dominant or female dominant. So Manny, I mean, like talk about, that side of it and kind of what you're seeing right now.
Well, one of the most important things of really looking at when you're starting in this industry is resourcing your genetics from the right person. there's a lot of false information out there that people have just flooded the industry with. And really getting to know who you're buying your genetics from, I mean, that's the first step. But really, more than that, I mean, we don't just sell plants. We're here to provide a service. You know, we like to see people out through the season just to help their chance for success rate. We like to make sure that at the best of our ability, the farmer succeeds. So, you know, if he wins, we win. We all win together. We like to see repeat customers. So we're not just like a 1-year deal and then we're out. You know, we really like to make long-term relationships with these farmers that we've got to know and that we're working with. And, you know, that's one of the funnest things about this industry is getting to know the farmers and seeing their layouts. Every single farm is different. Every single farm has a different watering system, different soil types. So we're learning with the farmers. The farmers are learning how to care for this plant. And we're learning more how to farm commercially, you know, so it's like we're exchanging knowledge. It's great, man. It's great.
That's awesome. And
And
I want to talk.
what we
Oh, go
really
ahead, Manny.
love from my standpoint is just being able to introduce a farmer who has a lot of questions, who's trying to figure out, is getting into the hemp industry going to be a benefit for me, or is it something that I should do because I've heard a lot of hype about it, and just being able to introduce him to someone like FreshGrown Texas and Manny, and have Manny sit down with that farmer and have a conversation about whether or not it's really a right time for them to get into the industry. Because I've attended with as the executive director at Go Texas Hemp, I've attended so many seminars around the state. And most of the seminars I attend are dominated by people from California or Colorado. And they're all trying to push a farmer into this type of drip system or this type of fertilization system. And it's all about taking advantage of the farmer, because you can really see they don't need to go out and purchase a brand new John Deere tractor. The existing tractor they already have, many can probably figure out how they can revamp that to service their needs without them going out and spending 30 grand on a hemp vehicle or tractor equipment. So those are the types of things that when it comes to bringing Manny in, you just really appreciate, because he kind of cuts through all the bullshit with farmers, and he can tell them. And I've seen him sit there and say, you know, this isn't the right time for you. Maybe you want to consider waiting and growing next season, or you don't have the type of irrigation system in. So that's what I like to hear. And so we really appreciate Manny for that.
Those insights are so important, you know, especially because this industry is so new. And I'm just curious. So Manny Fresh, I mean, you gotten some comments online, people describing you as the absolute prodigy in this field. Let's talk about your background, man. I mean, let's talk about like how you got started, maybe first into the cannabis side, and now why you switched to hemp, and the reason for that. What opportunities do you see?
Well, you know, I've been doing this for quite a while. I started about 13 years ago working with the cannabis plant. I worked my way up throughout the years, just building and managing grow operations for dispensaries and license holders in New Mexico in the medical cannabis industry. And it was great. You know, I got to learn a lot. I got to work with a lot of great people. 2017, I found myself working in Colorado, taking on a 4,000 plant count operation out there. Well, you know,
4,000, wow.
4,000 plants, cannabis. But, you know, I started talking to some farmers and they were questioning why I was in the cannabis industry. And I was almost puzzled to that question. I'm like, are you serious? Like, that's
The green
the industry
rush,
to be in.
right? Yeah.
That's right, you know. And but I started talking to some farmers and they're like, man, hemp is just business and just the way people do this on a commercial scale, it's just a great opportunity for, you know, basically you to, if you have the right work ethics and, you know, loyalty and everything else that comes with it, you know, it gives people like me a chance to do something on my own and be able to work across state lines and even in different countries. I mean, it's the hemp industry has been a, a blessing. I mean, like I said, I've got to work on a commercial scale. I mean, I went from 2017 growing 4,000 plants to 2019 growing over 400,000 plants.
Wow.
So that just kind of shows you the scale between both industries. Um, and I just really,
And why is that? I mean, why is the scale so big? Is it because there's more applications for hemp?
well, the thing is since the bill of 2018, now it's considered an agriculture crop. So rather than, you know, putting a cap on that number of how many plants you can grow, it's basically you can grow however many you can manage. So
You're talking about the farm bill, right?
yeah, so the Farm Bill of 2018. So I mean, it gives all farmers of all different acreage, whether you have a half of an acre or if you have 500 acres, I mean, if you have the means and the logistics and be able to take care of something like that, you can play ball in this game. That's the beauty of it. This industry has moved so fast in these past few years. I mean, you got to hold on tight. Otherwise, it's just going to miss you by.
Mm-hmm.
So it evolves all the time. And, you know, I never say, you know, we're master growers. We're not, because every year we should be learning something different. You know, I think we'll never be capped out when it comes to education on this plant. And that's what I love. That's what I love about it. I mean, we battle Mother Nature every single year. It's a challenge, and we should be learning something new every single season we put this plant out into the field.
Well, that's what fascinates me about the plant, is because what you just said, like, we should always be learning about it. And you're speaking from the grow perspective, right? The farming perspective. And what I've heard also is from, like, Dr. Hildebrand was here on the show before, and he talked about the possibilities on the medical side, right? I mean, there's only been 15 cannabinoids that have been identified out of 140. So it's exciting on every end of the spectrum, I would say.
We've just tapped into the cannabinoids. We've just tapped into them. So I'm sure from here on out, every year or every couple years, it's another new one's going to come out. I mean, I couldn't even sit here and tell you everything about the plant. So I mean, it's just the research is great. I mean, they're doing it at a super fast speed. So we're all going to be learning a lot about this industry and this plant for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
And on the political side of this, it's overwhelming from an educational standpoint when you're sitting in front of a legislator who's bombarded with tons of legislation and tons of issues, who, and in particular, a legislative body that meets biannually and only for a very short period from January through May. So it's like, how do you communicate the advances in the medical opportunities that exist within the cannabinoids to a legislator who maybe already has a closed mind and automatically thinks that any hemp plant is going to get you high?
It sounds like it would be like how the formats of the presidential debates are, where you have 30 seconds to yell and scream your point until they have to go to the next commercial break. It sounds like a difficult challenge.
It is. And as we move into the next session, I'll depend a lot on research and on people like Manny to kind of help create briefs that we can make some small baby steps in the right direction and also maintain where we are as an organization from a legislative standpoint in the gains we made last session.
Well, I love that you brought that up because Manny, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned when you first kind of got interested in hemp. I know New Mexico Department of Agriculture issued the first license in December of 2018. That was your license, correct, for FreshGrown?
Yeah, so I was still in Colorado when I was researching the hemp industry. I got to meet a lot of great people in the area where I was working at. Then I started reaching out to Department of Agriculture. Well, I believe timing is everything, man. So, I just decided to make a phone call out there one day, and Brad Lewis, who's in charge of the hemp program for Department of Agriculture, basically said, Manny, the department just threw this project on my desk and I know nothing about it. So he was like, can we talk? Can we talk about a few things? So I got a couple of people together in New Mexico that were already kind of tapping into the industry, along with some cannabis industry people, and we basically just sat down and just started talking about the industry, and had a few more meetings like that. Brad Lewis asked us about our input. We were looking at this stuff he was drafting up, and finally, at the end of the day, Brad did a very, very good job. His main goal was to protect the farmers, and I think he did a very, very good job at that. So yeah, I got the very first license approved in New Mexico. So I mean,
So is that your
it's been
plan
a roller
now?
coaster, man. It's been a roller coaster.
It sounds like it for sure, and it sounds like it's happened so quickly in just a matter of a couple of years.
Yeah.
Um, so is that your plan now? To Mike's point, is to help with legislation and kind of guide the Texas government here as hemp becomes a thing.
Well, I think with the work that Mike is doing, I think he's going to be able to take a lot of the data that I have and be able to use that with those kind of subjects. And that's not me. I'm boots on the ground. I do all my work. I collect all my data in the fields, but then that data is for Mike to be able to look over, and if he needs to use that to help him with those projects, then yeah, I mean, our
I
data
think,
is very important.
I
Very
think what
important.
Manny's saying is he doesn't want to have to put up with the hot air.
Hey,
Hey,
yeah,
farming's a full-time job, so I
that's
totally get
it.
it. Yeah,
That's it, man. Yeah,
I
yeah.
totally
So
get it.
I like
Yeah.
to stay in my lane for sure.
Hey, everybody adds value in some capacity, so you
That's
can't you can't
correct.
you
That's
can't
right.
do it all. So I get that.
No, and Mike I met Mike last year. Great group of guys. Um, and I think they're gonna do some real good stuff here in Texas, man. They're gonna do some real good stuff. We got a greenhouse that we're operating out of, and right outside of Lubbock, and so FreshGrown Texas is up and going. We have
That's
a
awesome.
license to
Congrats.
operate in sell seedlings, genetics approved by Department of Agriculture in Texas. So we're ready to go, man.
Let me ask you, we're talking about Texas. So I just had Randy Rivera on from the Texas Department of Agriculture. We've been talking, and I understand that there's over 600 licenses that have been issued to farmers in Texas. However, does it concern you that there currently are no licenses issued for processors?
So that is always a bottleneck that people need to be looking at. I know there's maybe two decent sized processors in New Mexico. I know Texas is still so fresh. I've been hearing rumors about people looking to build processing facilities and maybe even decortification facilities that handles the textiles part of everything, the fiber. Um, but I mean, I haven't seen anything yet. It's still so fresh, man. This industry moves so fast. You never know what's
Uh,
going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
prior to COVID, I mean, I did hear quite a few people that were jumping into the processing aspect, especially on the textile side in the West Texas area, because there's so much cotton grown in West Texas. So it's an easy transition for the farmers to understand from a textile standpoint. But with COVID, I think, up until I believe it was last month, a month and a half ago, there was only 400 licenses that had been issued. So I think we'll start to see, I think people are hedging their bets. They're kind of worried about the economy a little bit. But I believe we may see a processing plant for fibers and textiles in the West Texas area fairly soon.
Outside of the economic issues that are happening right now with COVID-19, like why does it seem like that's always the bottleneck? Is it because the equipment to purchase for the processing plants is so expensive? Like why
That's
is
right.
it?
That's right. And I mean, when you're talking about extraction equipment for cannabis and extraction equipment for hemp, those are two different ball games. So you're looking at, I mean, you can probably put together a decent lab for on the cannabis side. Um, I mean, just let's just call it $100,000 to where on the hemp side, I mean, you need some big equipment. We're talking like, in order to get some of these farms done, you need to be able to process 50,000 minimum pounds a day. To where on the cannabis side, and I'm just talking for New Mexico, you can get away with something that can process a couple of 100 pounds a day. So, I mean, just the scale of the equipment and just the money that it takes to build a nice clean lab and something that's going to be able to process your flour to crude oil. I mean, it's time and money, man. Time and money. In New Mexico, the first year there wasn't really anybody doing it, and towards the end of last year there was one company that started doing it on a pretty large scale, and man, I think they're the only company right now in New Mexico that can be able to handle people's acreage.
Well, speaking of costs, let's jump back to the hemp farming / cultivation side of it. What would you say is the biggest cost associated with hemp cultivation?
It all depends on farming practices, bro. You can spend a lot of money on labor costs for taking the weeds out of the field. If you don't have a lot of equipment, as far like mechanical equipment, and you got to hire a bunch of laborers to go out there and do it, sometimes labor can be a problem depending on location of your farm. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this pre-planning. There's a lot of questions that got to be answered before you think about doing this. I mean, we're not afraid to tell farmers, look, you have land, you have water, but you're missing these few things and they're very important. We don't think you're ready this year. We're not going to be that company that sells you plants and says good luck. We're going to make sure that you have your ducks in a row before we sell you any plants, because we don't want farmers to fail. It does take a lot of money. I mean, it varies though, depending on how much work you do yourself. But I've seen some farmers who have all the equipment to do it. And then I've seen some farmers that go and spend a lot of money to purchase the right equipment to do it. So it really counts on what you already have.
Well, I love that you're at the end of the day, your mission is to not let the farmers fail. And in your experience interacting with these various farmers, what would you say are some common mistakes that they make from the beginning that they should look out for?
The most common mistake I've seen is people not putting the plant deep enough into the ground. So when we're transplanting these plants, you got to remember that the first half or first inch of dirt is going to be pretty hot. So if you're not putting the plant deep enough, it's not going to be protected from the sun. So I saw a lot of people last year put their plants in the ground and immediately fried their root system because it just wasn't deep enough. I saw people that tried to plant in dry dirt. It's
Is
always good to
is
pre-water before you do anything like that. Temperatures really takes a play in it as well. When you first put your plants out into the field, they're going to do an acclimation stress. You're moving plants from one location to the next. You're putting plants in different soil types. You're putting them out in the field where they're going to get hit by wind. So these plants are going to stress for about a good 10 to 14 days before they really start to take off in the fields. But that's the kind of stuff that we really like to see. We like to see that acclimation stress. The plants are acclimating to the environment. They're acclimating to the water, the dirt, everything around the farm. So it's really, I like to see that acclimation stress. And then after that stress, they should just take off and do their thing. Arizona, for example, we went and put some plants out there. It was 104 degrees during the day. So we had to transplant at night with the temps a little cooler, but man, they're doing very well out there. High temps, high wind, and the environments are pretty rough, but the plants are doing well.
I've heard that South Texas is really, really ideal for hemp growing. I don't know how true that is or what. I haven't looked too much into it, but how does Texas compare to New Mexico, given your experience in terms of climate?
Well, I mean, I haven't been all over Texas just yet, but I am
And it's a big
noticing
state.
that,
It is,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I am noticing that in the parts that I've been to, Kevin, water is scarce. We don't, in New Mexico, I thought that we were dry out there, while some parts of Texas is even drier than New Mexico. So that's just what I'm starting to see, just depending, of course, on location. But that's why if you're gonna do anything for CBD oil, I'm gonna recommend, and of course in the areas that I've been to, drip system, because you're direct feeding your plant. You're not wasting water. You're not watering the weeds. Weeds is another big thing that farmers are going to have to prep for. Um, Weeds is going to be your issue for the first month or two, and that's just the battle you're gonna have to fight.
And that's just basically labor, right? I mean, pulling the weeds, however you're doing it with equipment, or I mean,
Equipment, labor, yeah, just whatever you have. A lot of farmers have cultivators. They're basically attachments that they pull behind the tractor, and it gets in between the rows and pulls as much weeds as it can. But sometimes you got to get in there with the hoe, man, and I know that can be costly for when it comes to labor.
And
right.
I learned something new today when I was out with Manny visiting a farm out here in West Texas. And Manny, maybe you want to elaborate, because I might get this wrong, but how you can plant enough seeds so close together that it can prevent some of the weeds from growing, or kind of smother the weeds.
Well, I think that's going to be a good idea if we can figure out what the textile industry is going to be like. If people are planning on growing for industrial, you can get away with planting a lot of seed per acre to kind of prevent those weeds from coming up, to allow the hemp plant to choke out the weed. That's initially what the weeds will do, is they start to come up, and if you don't take care of them, they're going to choke out the hemp plant. So that's why it's very important for that first month, 2 months, to be taking care of those weeds. Once the hemp plants start to create some sort of canopy, you're not going to have to worry about the weeds as much anymore. But the first 2 months is very important.
Mm. Well, let's talk about, I read online that you were working on some seed projects in 2019. What type of seed projects were you running?
So we did in New Mexico, under the supervision of the Department of Agriculture, we did a 20,000 square foot seed project. So basically we took genetics that we've been working with, and we made our own feminized seed. all my life I've been growing plants not to get seed. So this time it was a little different. So I got some help from some guys in Oregon, some really professional guys that are great to work with, and basically came down and gave us a hand and kind of made sure that we were doing what we needed to do to succeed at the seed project. I know when I need help, and I'm not afraid to ask for it, man. So yeah, making feminized seed was definitely, it was our first time doing it. We had great help. We succeeded. We got all of our COAs and our test results back. As of right now, I have not found one male. So
Wow.
the process of that is we get our seed, we grow it, take leaf samples, send them off to certain testing facilities. We worked with one out of Oregon called Philos, and they do feminization test. Basically, you grow the seedling, you take a leaf sample, put them in test tubes, send them out, and they'll determine whether it's a male or female. So once we got the test results back, we were confident enough to be able to hit the market with our genetics. So it's been great, man.
Nice. That confidence and that go-getter attitude, it comes from blend, man. I think that's where most of us get it. So
School of hard knocks, my friend. School of hard knocks.
I'm looking forward to visiting.
I took night
Glenn.
classes.
Looking forward to visiting Glenn and drinking the water.
Yes, you got to go visit. You'd love it. So Manny, speaking of New Mexico, tell us about your greenhouse operation in Estancia, New Mexico. What are you guys harvesting? Are you harvesting this year? What kind of crops are you guys planting? Yeah,
so we took over a greenhouse that's been in operations for a long time. Timing is everything. You always hear me say that. I met the original owner a couple years ago. Great guy. He's been actually in the flower business for 42 years. Last year he decided to retire, so I took over the greenhouse and kept the flower business going. So we're currently still wholesaling flowers to the nurseries in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, a lot of the nurseries out there that actually deal with the retail. So yeah, right now this time of the year it's very pretty, man. A lot of colors in the greenhouse. We got
I saw that picture you sent me. Those flowers look beautiful.
yeah, so I mean, I enjoy the crap out of it, man. It's great. So we're gonna continue to do the flowers. Right now is our season for seedlings, so we are planting all of our feminized seed, getting them growing for the farmers out there. And once we're done with that, myself, along with a couple of guys I got under me, we go out to the fields and we start our consulting, man. Just boots on the ground. So then again, this winter time, we'll probably do another little seed project. But that's it, man. We're just keeping the ball rolling.
Always moving and expanding to Texas. That's exciting. FreshGrown, Texas.
Hey, that's very exciting. So I'm gonna be in New Mexico. I'm be in Texas. It's great, man. It's great.
Awesome.
And we're happy to have him. We'll make him into a Texan before he realizes it.
Oh, for sure. I've gotten him in the best of both worlds, New Mexico and now Texas. So it works out. It's perfect. I got a question for Mike, and then we can wrap this up. But it's a legislative question. So, how close is Texas to legalizing marijuana?
I get this question all the time. It's really, really hard to say. There's a lot of factors involved in that. I believe if I were a betting man, it would be about 5 to 6 years.
Whoa!
But remember, that's only about 3 sessions. Legislative session.
It's crazy, isn't that? That's so wild. Are most states run like that? Like where they have sessions and they take that much time off to discuss important topics, or is that exclusive to Texas?
You know, as a Texan who supports less government, it sometimes can be a good thing because our legislature is controlled sometimes by so many different individuals that sometimes I wonder if they were so active, if they were
Got
active
you.
every year, we might be in more trouble than we are.
Right.
But so it could work to our benefit.
They'd have more eyeballs on it.
That's
They
right.
do a lot more poking.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Give them more time. But a lot of factors too are going to be determined by this upcoming election cycle. Who controls the House? Is it going to be the Democratic Party or the Republican Party? There's about a 12-seat difference right now. So we'll see. You never know in politics what could really happen. So.
No, especially an election year like this year. You don't know
And you
what's
also
going to happen from
don't
day to day.
Trump could legalize pot.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that one of them, either Biden or Trump, will run on that premise to swing voters, swing voters to go to one side. I don't know who's going to pull the trigger and do it, but that could be a factor, for sure.
Especially if the Trump campaign is trying to reach out to younger, more progressive voters.
Sure.
Bernie Sanders type supporters.
Yep.
And as someone that used to work for the Marijuana Policy Project in Washington, D.C., I could see that as being a vote getter for one or both of them. So,
yeah, cool. Well, anything else that any of you guys want to say to our audience before we wrap it up?
I just want to say, if anyone out there is really thinking about growing hemp, get as much information, get as much education as you can before you do it. Genetics is key. Genetics is key. So good farming practices, look at what bugs are in the area to determine what kind of preventatives you're going to use. That's it, man. Do your homework. Do your homework.
And as someone that's really interested in protecting the farmer, my recommendation is shop local, buy local, get local advisors, get involved in organizations such as Go Texas Hemp Association, so we can hook you up with people like Manny and FreshGrown Texas. And that way you'll be more apt to get a better product and a higher yield. Or decide it's not for you and save a lot of money.
Well said. Coming from Manny Fresh, the GOAT, and Mike Hendricks, Executive Director of Go Texas Hemp Association. I appreciate you guys being on.
Nice shirt, my man. Nice shirt.
Hey, I got to represent, man. Manny, I got this from you. So I wear it. I wear it every time I go to conventions and whatnot. So I
need a shirt, but it needs to say Fresh Grown Texas.
Yes, I want a Fresh Grown Texas. And then once I get my Cannabinoid Connect shirts going, you guys will get one.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, cool. Kevin. I appreciate it, bro. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Bro. No problem. We'll see you guys. All right. Later.